Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Chaotic Neutral presented by Motorola. I'm your host, Sab, here with my good friend Connor, Artemis, here to talk about all things LCS. So let's kind of get started. This week was a huge week for EG, Connor. Let's talk about roster first. That's what's on everyone's mind.
Yeah, so this week we made the really hard decision to move forward with the Goldenglue and Huni and Bang roster, as your cat makes a cameo appearance. Yeah, but and this is I think the first thing just to clarify is that like although this is the roster we were rolling with last week and it's the roster we're rolling with this week, it's not necessarily locked in stone for the entirety of the split. One of the big reasons that we made this move in the first place is just the increase in optionality that it gave us. Before we didn't have a North American mid laner on our roster. Gyu in Academy, he's an emerging region import. So despite the fact that he doesn't count as an import in Academy, he does still in LCS. So if we wanted to run a roster with Huni and Bang at the same time, we needed a North American mid laner. And Goldenglue's been on our radar, and we've been talking to Goldenglue since he got dropped by GGS after the spring split. So we always knew that this was somebody that like potentially we might be adding in the future. Like I think that from the conversations we had with him pretty quickly, like we knew like what kind of person he was and like what he would bring to the organization. And we ended up really struggling in practice. This was like 3 weeks ago, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, before the CLG match, and even the week prior to that, we just weren't really seeing improvement at the speed and at the scale we wanted to. And it was pretty alarming, I think, for the coaching staff and for management, because previous, like we had been showing some improvement and like we did make progress in certain areas that like we knew were essentially like kind of like fixed problems within the team, and like we were working through them, but ultimately like we really weren't able to make progress in key areas when it came to just getting the players on the same page about how they wanted to play the game as five. So this roster move was a way for us to hopefully, this was what we were thinking anyway, hopefully this would get a roster with like a clear strategic direction, all five players like playing towards the same thing at the same time, and like we could actually start to improve as a team at a much faster rate and hopefully like finish higher, at least when it comes to like team skill, than we otherwise would. And yeah, I'm super pleased with what we're seeing in practice. I think that Goldenglue, he's been a fantastic addition to the team. He's a super hard worker, brings a lot of energy to practice, and so does Huni as well. So the addition of both those guys has definitely been like a positive influence in practice. And yeah, I think the results are speaking for themselves. Beating Cloud9, it's not an easy thing to do, but by any means, I think, 100 Thieves did it first. Everybody was like, oh, maybe Cloud9 is like trolling or something. And we'll get into this more later, but I think I was super, super pleased and really happy with the win we had. And we're filming this on Tuesday, the 21st. And practice is going well this week. We only had 1 day of practice. We practiced on Monday, but we're against quite a good team, and we stomped them pretty good. So I'm definitely excited for practice today, excited for practice this week, and excited for our matches this weekend for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of questions that people are asking right now are, what is Jizuke's role in kind of all of this? Obviously, he's not playing in the academy circuit. Do you kind of want to divulge?
Yeah, definitely. I think the most of the criticism we've gotten from fans, or like the hate we've gotten from fans, are definitely like Jizuke's fans, people who like previously were fans of Vitality or fans of like the EULCS, who kind of came to be fans of EG because of Jizuke and the really exciting League of Legends he plays. And, I think a lot of people didn't really understand. They're like, why are you subbing out Jizuke? Like, he's like solo carried games for you before. Like, he's your most exciting player. He's like your best mid laner. Like, what are you doing? And, kind of the sad reality of the situation is, this is a team sport. And it sometimes, like, individual skill like doesn't really matter. What matters is how you work as a team, and how that team of five functions together. We see this example all the time in traditional sports, where sometimes like talented players like just don't really click with teammates, or they don't really click in the system, and like you end up struggling to sort of reach like the same level that you might otherwise be able to reach. So we were seeing something similar in practice, where Jizuke, he's a phenomenal player. Like I still believe that pound for pound Jizuke is the most talented mid laner in the LCS, but for whatever reason we weren't really able to get the five of those guys on the same page. And of course, like coaching staff can take some of the blame. Like I was really critical as us as a staff, like before we made this move. And I was like advocating like, what if it's us? Like, let's make sure we've done everything possible that we can do to make sure that this roster, like, give it the chances that it deserves. Like, let's like look at ourselves first, see like where our deficits have been, and try and fix these before we make a roster decision that could, have some like big externalities associated with it, because nobody likes being benched, right? But ultimately, we decided after, a lot of introspection and a lot of, hard conversations as a staff, with all players, all staff, whether it's coaches, analysts, management, players, everybody was involved in this decision-making process. And ultimately, we decided that this was the roster that we wanted to try out and just sort of see what happened and see how it felt in practice. Jizuke, I think, of course, I think we could have handled it better. Like, I'm sure that it still was pretty traumatic for him. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it definitely wasn't fun or wasn't easy. Being benched like that. But I was just so proud of how Jizuke responded this week in practice. Like, he's been at practice every day with us. He's watching all the games. He's even like going back after review and watching Goldenglue's lane phase with him, and he's giving him tips on like how he should be playing the level 1, how he should be looking to play his lane phase. And he's really being a positional coach for Goldenglue in the mid lane right now. And I'm just so proud of Jizuke and how he's really stepped up to the challenge that we've given him, to just still be involved in the team and still feel like he's a part of this team. Because for me, I spoke with him yesterday again, and I said, man, like, I'm so proud of what you're doing. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Like, I want you to feel like comfortable in this team. I want you to feel like you're part of this team. And I think that he's slowly getting more used to, the new status quo. And, him being like finding ways to be useful and finding ways to help us get wins, I think is just says a lot about Jizuke and a lot about his character as a player and as a person. So super proud of Jizuke and the work he's doing. And he's definitely been instrumental to Goldenglue kind of fitting into our style, and also Goldenglue's individual performances.
For sure. I mean, I've noticed this as well. Like, Jizuke is like going above and beyond to support the team, even in times like this. He is still being involved in conversations, supporting draft picks, telling, the team, hey, like, this is stuff that you should be looking out for. And I found that like really cool. Like, I've worked with a lot of players in my time, and I have not seen someone respond like this, like going above and beyond and being the better person and like working as a unit, rather than just individually kind of like moping about themselves. So shout out to Jizuke, you're a really cool guy. He already knows that I think that though. So
he does for sure. Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, let's kind of jump into the games. I know you've given a little bit of tidbits of your thoughts on the C9 game. I don't really want to talk too much about the TL game unless you have like some sort of, 1-2 sentence you want to kind of touch on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that this was a sentiment we felt as a team. But I think if we didn't lose to Team Liquid the way we did, we wouldn't have beat Cloud9. So I think that, I was pretty, I can't say I'm happy with the loss because, losing is never fun, but I was happy with the way we lost. I think one of the most challenging things for coaches when you're like getting into a new roster is figuring out how to draft for the players that you have. And we changed both of our solo laners and had a 3-day practice week, not a 4-day practice week, on a new patch. So it was definitely going to be a challenge for us to be able to get like an effective draft on a Friday where we were red side, Team Liquid had side selection. And, they had a really, really nice draft. They had great prep, credit to them, how they used their blue side bands and how they used their 1, 2, 3 picks in the first phase. I think we were sort of checkmated even after the 1, 2, 3s. And I think like one of the most important things, again, in drafting is how you are communicating with your players, either before the match or even during the draft phase, like how you're getting their opinions on matchups, like how they view their job within the team, and then like what they think about like their matchups relative to their role within the team. And I think that for us, like Goldenglue, I think in the Friday game, like he didn't really have like a clear understanding of like what we really needed from him when it comes to like his role within the team, and because of that, like he was sort of like putting himself in a position where he wasn't really able to succeed, and he thought that he was doing it for the good of the team, but the reality was that like that wasn't really what we needed. So after losing the way we did, after drafting the way we did, we were able to kind of like say, hey guys, like look, like this is what we don't want to have happen, right? And like how can we prevent this in the future? And I think that was super valuable, and that a big part of that is the reason why we had such an effective draft against Cloud9 the next day. So yeah, despite losing to Team Liquid, I'll take a 1-1 weekend against Team Liquid and Cloud9. That should still be a +1 relative to all the other teams in the league, so that should give us a little bit of bump in our standings. So yeah, despite the Team Liquid loss, I think it was actually really instrumental in our win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to like kind of highlight too how the players responded post that game. A lot of players just kind of feel dejected. They don't really want to convene as a group. They just kind of want to do their own thing. But I noticed that they were like having those conversations, those hard conversations about like, hey, these are things that we needed to do. These are things that, I think we could have done better. How do we feel about this until like late into the night that night? And that was
Yeah.
insane. I have never seen that
Yeah.
in that kind of way.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like I gave Grayson a ride home after the game, and I kind of challenged him. I was like pretend you have one band, like pretend you have two bands. Like here's like Niski's pool. Like figure out what you want to play tomorrow. Like tell me, like figure out like for you like how you can be like the most comfortable like in like your matchup against Niski. Like with like one band, two band, three bands. Like give me all the scenarios. So Grayson really took that challenge like to heart, and he went home, spent a lot of time thinking about mid lane matchups, spent a lot of time talking to Jizuke about mid lane matchups, and I was really happy with the strategy we ended up putting together for a match against Cloud9.
Yeah, it was amazing. And speaking of Cloud9, you got to go through like from beginning to end, like how did that happen? Because I know all the viewers at home are asking themselves, EG showed up, on Saturday compared to Friday. What was that 24-hour difference?
I think our mentality before the Team Liquid match and the Cloud9 match was exactly the same. I think before the Team Liquid match, we expected to win. We thought we were going to be the better team just with our week of practice. And we still had that same confidence and that same swagger against Cloud9 on Saturday. I was really proud of the guys that we didn't lose any of that confidence against Team Liquid. And a big part of that is, after a loss where you have a bad draft, like, good coaches are like, throw that one out, guys. Like, that's on me. Like, blame draft or whatever. So I think that we sort of had that as like a cushion, and we didn't really take like a big psychological blow to the Team Liquid draft. We were able to just kind of throw it out, or the Team Liquid loss rather. We were able to just kind of throw it out and move on to the Cloud9 match. I think that, it always starts with draft. It comes first, like in the chronological order of the game. But I was really happy with the draft we had against Cloud9. I think that there are certain elements that we feel are pretty necessary to our success as a team, and we're able to get most of those elements in that draft, in addition to getting some pretty comfortable and pretty good matchups for most of our players. So with that, we had like a really balanced draft and one of the things about this team is it's a pretty balanced team. There's no real glaring weaknesses in our roster. There's just we have 5 really intelligent, really solid players. And, with a good draft where they feel like they have the tools to actually like play the game from minute 1 to minute 24, which is really what the game is about, right? Like in this meta, it's not about like scaling for late game. It's not about, even like necessarily snowballing. It's just being like consistently like proactive, or like having the tools, having the agency to play the game from the first dragon to the 4th dragon, and then after that the game's over. So I think with that we had a draft that we were very comfortable with, and Cloud9, they had a draft that they were comfortable with too. They were definitely on prep for most of that draft. We first pick Aphelios, they instantly respond with Lisa and Ashe, which is their preparation. We respond with Volibear and Zoe, which is most likely on their prep. Maybe the Zoe pick wasn't on their prep, but of course the Volibear response to Lisa would have been prepped by them. And then all they have to do is really pick Niski whatever mid lane matchups he wants Zoe on 3, pick it on 3 pick, and then go right back into their 4-5 prep. So I think both teams were working on book in that draft. I don't think Cloud9 was necessarily surprised by what we were doing. We weren't surprised by what they were doing. We had everything predicted from them. So I think we were on prep all the way down to the 4-5. So I'm sure that they were too, because they're a team that preps well like us. So I think both teams really got what they wanted, and I think they just got outplayed. That's really all it is. Like, I think that some people are saying like, oh, Cloud9 didn't show up, and I think even them after the game, like, like that wasn't our best game. And it's always a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Like maybe Cloud9 didn't play their best game, but at the same time, I think that discredits a lot of the work that we put in that game. Like we were really, really on our game. Like after they dove top and Goldenglue traded 1-for-1, Huni ended up dying, so it was a 1-for-2. Cloud9 had a 2,000 gold lead in that game, and this was like pre 15 minutes, I think, and typically with Cloud9 having a gold lead like that, they're able to extend that gold lead and like do something with it. But we were even winning objective fights, and we were actually like, we looked like the better team, even from a deficit, just because of like the team play that we were using in that game. So yeah, I was super, super pleased with that game. Like during the game, I wasn't like letting myself get excited at all. Like first dragon, I didn't care. All the way to the 4th dragon. Even after we got Soul, I still was like, not really thinking we're going to win. I was just very like analytical listening to the game, because we're listening, 6 minutes ahead of broadcast, which is really weird. But yeah, I'm just listening to the game, and it wasn't until we actually fought an Elder and then TP'd to their base that I actually kind of like slammed my desk and let out a yell. It was a really big win for us. I think we really needed that. We needed that confidence boost for sure coming into this week of practice. And yeah, I'm super proud of the way we bounced back from Friday into Saturday and beat Cloud9. I think that they definitely weren't expecting how good we were, and I don't think that they really lost much of their momentum or lost much of what makes them Cloud9 either. We saw in the next day they came back and they smashed FlyQuest pretty easily. That's the Cloud9 we're used to seeing. I think that's still the Cloud9 that we beat on Saturday. I just think we were the better team.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I think that you can tell that our players were playing with confidence throughout the game, even at a deficit. And, to be completely frank, I felt like we were winning, but at some points we had less kills, less gold, and like just being even like was already really exciting. For me at least. And being able to kind of see our guys pull through was so surreal because again, like it is so hard to come into that second game in the week. You only have 2 best of ones after a defeat and like just like push through like all that mental and like just make it happen. And that's what they did. I think every player was like exemplary in all kinds of facets. And it was really exciting to see Huni on that gameplay. I'm just saying.
GP, yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I think everybody, it was a team victory. Goldenglue stepped up. He had a great game. Dennis had a great game. I think, funnily enough, like the player who like didn't have the best game was Bang. And usually if your AD carry doesn't have a good game, like you're not going to beat the team like fine. But it was really just a testament to how well we were playing as a team. And like I'm not discrediting Bang at all. Like Bang he's a really crucial piece to our mid game communication. Mm-hmm. He is just so important to how this team functions. Like, which is a big reason that like we're using this roster iteration and keeping him on the Rift, just because of like the kind of leadership he brings in a lot of those moments. So despite like having a few misplays on his part, he was still really crucial that win. Yeah, all 5 of those guys can take a lot of credit for that win. That's for sure.
For sure. And I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper with Bang. So Bang and Huni obviously have a previous relationship. They've been on really great teams together. How does that kind of play within like the gameplay?
Well, it's great, actually. I've worked with Huni before at Clutch Gaming, and when we went to Worlds, I like saw like Huni and Bang chilling together because Bang was there as like an interviewer. I think he was there with
Inven.
Yeah, he was there with Inven. So like I got to see firsthand that relationship at Worlds, Huni and Bang chilling together, like going around Berlin and like taking pictures with all the bears, like the Huni bear and everything. And that was kind of like my first view into like the friendship between like Bang and Huni. And you're right, they played on what it was 2016 or 2017 SKT where they lost. I forget the year where they lost the World Finals to Samsung. And that's a pretty cool bit of history. Like I think like that kind of like trauma bonding or whatever you want to call it, like is like definitely brings you really close. And Huni and Bang have a really, really tight friendship. And it was really nice for Bang, I think, to get Huni in the roster. Like I've noticed Bang is like much happier in practice. I think that he's like a little bit less anxious, just like on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, it was big for him having his close friend Huni like involved just in the game, in the pregame, just having him around in our work environment has just been amazing. And then on top of that, I think that they have a really good working relationship. Like there's just a lot of mutual respect between those two. And like Huni will like really push Bang and talk to Bang about bot lane matchups, and they'll go back and forth speaking Korean with Irene for like 5 minutes while I'm kind of on the sideline like picking up words here and there, kind of like playing the tennis match back and forth. And then after the fact, I'll be like, okay, guys, like, what's our conclusion? And then they'll kind of like loop me in. And that's been big too, having, somebody else that Bang really respects that can challenge him and push him when it comes to like the way he sees the game. So that relationship is just really, really high functioning, both outside the game and inside the game. And I think that will be a big reason that both of these players are going to succeed at each.
And like a small plug too, if you guys want to see a little bit of that relationship, they've actually been streaming together, which has been really fun to watch as well. If you have some time, feel free to check out those VODs. As like their personalities kind of come out, and I kind of want to do this, like, I don't know, talk about this, but like a lot of LCS and like NA viewers don't really understand like how Korean culture functions, and they kind of see these people as like very distant, or like last split a lot of people said that Bang's interviews he was just like absolutely depressed and like just didn't want to be there, and there was all this narrative storyline stuff. the culture is just completely different. It's a little different, and you're kind of being taken out of that into a very extroverted, like you need to speak about everything you're talking about, everything that you're feeling. And that's not how it is in Asian culture, specifically as well as in like South Korea. So kind of take some time, get to know our players. I think they're really funny guys. Like they're hilarious.
They're so funny. Yeah.
And get to know them. And then speaking of that, like let's do a little bit of talk about like Goldenglue and Grayson and like like his personality and how that's kind of changed the team dynamic as well. I think he is such a motivated person. Always like thinking about the game and trying to improve himself. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Has that changed anything?
Yeah, like I really like working with players like Grayson. He's just got a lot of fire in him. Like he just really wants to win. Like he wants to win so bad, and he really hates losing. And like I gave him a ride home after our loss to Team Liquid, and we were both just so depressed and so sad because I can't stand losing. I've never been a good loser. I'm still not a good loser. I'm still not getting any better. It hurts just the same every time. And we were both pretty devastated with that loss. Like we both felt like there was a lot more we could have done like individually to like prevent that. And yeah, I think that was a bonding moment for us for sure. Just both being miserable together. But no, he like the energy he brings in scrims, like he wants to win every single game of scrims. And like in the stage games on the weekend, like every game with Grayson feels like a playoff game. Like he is like up, he's energetic, he's got like the adrenaline inside him, and like he's there to fucking play. And like that kind of energy is contagious to his teammates. And I think that it's really elevated the energy levels that we've been able to play at in practice, which I think is huge. For me, like this is something I preach a lot, but like having intensity in practice is so important because like if you play kind of like just kind of down or whatever, like during the week, and then try and like get up for like the stage game, like one, it's going to feel unnatural, and two, like oftentimes you're performing from kind of a place of anxiety. So it's super important that you try and replicate like that level of intensity and that level of like emotional or physical activation that you'll get on the weekends in practice. And it's been really big for us as a team having Grayson there because he is a kind of player who gets up for practice, and that's contagious to his teammates. But just on top of that, like he's just a really cool guy. Like he's fit right into our team environment. Yeah, he's been a great friend, I think, to the guys already. I think they're all getting along with him really well. And, on top of that, we were all really surprised with how good Grayson is. Like, I think the narratives around Grayson, like, are kind of bullshit. Like, yeah, he made some mistakes in the Team Liquid game, and we saw some, like, bad elements for sure. But he just was not set up to succeed at all. And then on Saturday, we gave him the tools to succeed. We put him in a position where he felt like he could play the game, and we got rewarded for that with the exceptional performance from Grayson. So, I think that there's definitely some... not some kinks, but there's some things we need to polish about Grayson, like in review and stuff. Like I think that despite having some really good, he's got a great baseline for us, and that's why he fits so well into our system. But like we're definitely working with him on like just tweaking small things about how he sees the game, and like he's got a really great mind for strategy, and he's got a really great mind for macro. Just sometimes he's kind of missing just like a tiny little piece of like what we should actually be looking for and like what we should actually be planning for. And he's really good at seeing like the end result, and like he really understands what we need to get done. And now for us, it's just about kind of tweaking about how we get there as a team. And it's been really fun working with Grayson in practice. I'm super happy he's here.
Yeah. And, to kind of roll off that and snowball off that, we've had a really great week. As you mentioned, like practice has been really amazing to see. How are we feeling about this week? This week, we're facing off Immortals and Dignitas.
Duo, baby.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind. It's a 2-0 this weekend. I think Dignitas should be an absolute free win. I've never been more confident in the LTS match, probably going into this game. That's going to be our Sunday game. But they're just absolutely, taking on water and sinking pretty quick through the LCS. Not really worried about them. So that should just, as long as we get a good draft against Dignitas, we should win easily. But Immortals, I think, is they're an interesting team. I gave them some praise on one of these episodes, either last week's or the week previous. But I think Immortals is a good team. I'll say it again. Some people like kind of meme me for it, but like I genuinely think Immortals is a good team. I don't think they have the best individual players at all, but I think they play pretty damn well as a team. Yeah, they like the teamwork that they use and like the kind of macro that they use. Like I think they're probably well coached, and I think that they all see the game like in the same way, and it really shows. Like in their match, it was against CLG. They were down 2 dragons and like 3,000 gold, and then they worked a retake on their dragon. So CLG had set up around dragon, and they worked like a minute and a half retake just beautifully. And they successfully retook the dragon area. They took the third dragon, they equalized the gold lead, and then they just were winning after that point, like convincingly. And it's really, really cool to watch a team go from like a -2 evaluation or something, like a decently losing position, and then like work like a retake like pretty expertly, and then get to a winning position like at the drop of a hat. So if you guys haven't seen that game, I'd go check it out, because it's a really great illustration of I guess like a fake winning position for CLG. Like you're only winning as long as you can, keep executing, and they got basically out executed at the third dragon by Immortals, and Immortals was just hard winning after that based on their draft. So they're a dangerous team. I think that against Immortals, we have to draft well, we have to execute well, but both of those things should be pretty straightforward. Like, we've drafted well before, we've executed well before. So as long as we kind of get both of those things going for us, I think that we're the much better team, and I think we'll have pretty convincing victories against both of these teams this weekend.
Yeah. I guess I kind of want to ask you, what do you think has been Immortals' like pillar in this, right? Because obviously individually, I can't say anyone really stands out to me, compared to other teams. What do you think do you think they have a pillar, or is it just like a unit? Like they just kind of like work together, the coaching staff's like, hey, let's have the same mindset while we go into this game. This is our game plan.
Yeah.
And that's how they execute.
I don't have my scouting report in front of me, but how many games has Smithy gotten Graves in the past few weeks? Like their pillar for success is Smithy having excellent early games. Even their game against us that they lost, which they arguably should have won. I think Smithy had an excellent early game in that game as well. But I've just watched Smithy really outpath and outpace pretty much all the junglers in the league, at least in his like his opener as a jungler. And he's always keeping up in farm. He's always winning in farm. He's always in the right place at the right time. And I've been definitely surprised with the level of play that I've seen from Smithy, even on this roster. I think that they play around him pretty well. And I think that I'm not sure what he does as far as their communication, but I know that in Team Liquid, like he was a big part of like kind of why they looked the way they looked and like how they played the way they played. I think he was a big communicator in that. And I'm sure he takes an active role in communicating in this Immortals team as well. So I do think that Smithy is a huge part of their wins, because like a lot of times like Alarim is just bleeding in the top lane because that's what he does. He's a weak side player. He's not trying to play for lane, but he'll be bleeding pretty badly in lane. And then Insanity will be doing well for himself, but he's never going to be like smashing individually that like old Jizuke would for us or something. And then their bot lane is just like decent, like 50-50 solid players. They're never really picking for lane, with the exception of sometimes if they get like a Thresh matchup they really like or something, maybe they'll kind of like a lane focused lane, but for the most part they're playing for team fights. So realistically, like this is a team that isn't really doing much in draft to like get structural advantages in the early game. Like they very much rely on their teamwork to kind of like take a like relatively even position or even a slightly losing position and then flip that to a winning position just based on how they play the mid game. So it really is definitely that they function well as a team together. I don't think that there's an individual that's really carrying them, but if I had to pick out one person, it would be Smithy, because I thought that he's just looked pretty dominant in a lot of his games on Graves, outpathing the enemy jungler, always right place, right time. And yeah, always supporting his laners the way that we know Smithy does. So I think give a lot of credit to the coaching staff at Immortals, give a lot of credit to the players there, their academy players, but also give some credit to Smithy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think Smithy has always been the pillar in a lot of the teams that he's been on. And I want to give like a quick exercise, like 2-minute exercise. Now that you know the information that you know, double lift, tactical, Smithy, Broxa, and then there are 3. What is your ideal TL draft? If you're like the TL coach and you know everything that you know now, and you like time travel back into previous spring split, What is your roster?
What is my roster?
Yeah.
For Team Liquid? So I can choose between like Smithy and Broxa kind of thing?
Yes.
Well, I mean, this is some context that like I think nobody ever talks about, but like Smithy was a free agent, no? Like it was his contract year. It's not like I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's not like Team Liquid traded him to Immortals, and it's not like Team Liquid didn't try and re-sign him. Like I think that if you are assuming that Team Liquid didn't try and re-sign Smithy, then I don't know what to tell you. Like I've got a bridge I'd like to sell you. I think it's beautiful. We can definitely work something out later. So DM me. But no, like I'm sure that Team Liquid tried to re-sign Smithy. I'm sure they gave him a great offer. And if you're looking at Immortals, like what other big name player did Immortals sign other than Smithy? There's nothing, right? So they signed Smithy, and then essentially like from just a roster construction perspective, like budget players, like players they got on like a pretty good steal. Like I would say those players all had like perceived values that were lower or equal to than their actual value, which is just, it means that they're in like a buyer's market, right? So I'm not a the Immortals GM. I don't know how much they paid Smithy, but like I'm sure he cashed out at Immortals. I bet Immortals paid more than Team Liquid. And coupled with, of course, money matters to a lot of these guys. They have to think about their families. They have to think about their futures, which money should matter. Okay, like there's nothing wrong with that. So money mattered to Smithy, absolutely. But also I think that, being able to kind of be like the leader of a new team, to kind of like come in, help build the roster, right? Have like a lot of kind of creative control when it comes to the direction of the team, before he got kind of benched to Academy. But the people who did that are no longer there, right? Smithy kind of had the last laugh. So yeah, I think that those are the reasons why he likely went to Immortals. Again, I don't know. And again, I'm sure that Team Liquid tried to re-sign Smithy. I would guarantee it. I would bet so much money that they tried to re-sign Smithy. Absolutely. And I guess knowing what I know now, like I probably wouldn't have I probably still would have gotten Broxa. Like I think that there's a lot of junglers that like I can think of probably 4 or 5 junglers in the LCS that I think like would probably work better at Team Liquid. I don't want to like necessarily shout them out too much, but like I'm sure like Svenskeren obviously would work better. And like if you're kind of like looking through the jugglers like in the league who like have talent, I think that like many of them would function as well, if not better, than Broxa in Team Liquid. And that's not saying that Broxa is a bad player, because Broxa looked really, really good on Fnatic. I think he's a very talented jungler. I think he's a really, really phenomenal player, but he's not really working in that system as well as I think anybody expected. And again, similar with Jizuke, like sometimes it's not really about your individual skill as a player. In season 10, like individual skill is like a murky kind of like nebulous thing. Like what really is individual skill? It's just about getting 4 dragons and winning the game. And like you really can't get a dragon by yourself. Like you can win lane by yourself, that's for sure, but like you can't stack 4 dragons by yourself. It's impossible. So individual skill, sort of a thing of the past in this current meta. It's really all about like how you function as a team. And I don't know. Screw it. I would have signed Meteos. I'm kidding. I think Brox is fine. I would have probably signed Brox if I couldn't have gotten a Smithy. Like hell, yeah. Brox is fine
for sure. And then tactical or double lift, real quick.
Knowing what I know now, tactical for sure.
Easy answer.
Easy answer. I think tactical. Super talented kid. Me and Tactical played on a team together back in 2016, 2017. We played on the same amateur team. So it was cool kind of watching our careers kind of like take the same trajectory at the same speed. Like, I think when I first got my academy coaching job, he was playing in academy, and then I went up to LCS last year, but then I took kind of like a promotion or like a bigger gig in LCS this year. And then like so did he. So it's been really fun to watch him. We don't really talk or stay in touch or whatever, but I'm a Tactical fan for sure. I've said that before. I'm super happy with his development, and I think he's going to be one of the best AD carries in North America. He already is, but I think he's got a lot more room to grow, and I'm excited.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. I think he's like such a really cool person to follow in terms of like such young talent coming through the NA circuit.
He's so nice.
I also think
such a nice.
Yeah, he's so nice, and he's such a zoomer as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if this doesn't matter, but basically he's kind of gotten the rest of his team to use emotes because he's kind of a zoomer, and he's like, hey guys, like when we get a kill, we gotta like BM these kids apparently.
Nice.
So he started that kind of culture at the team, and apparently it's brings kind of like new life and like a little bit more fun, and kind of gotten them to bond as a team a little bit differently than they did in the spring split. So I have to credit Tactical. I think he is a big part of like why they came. TL looks so different in the summer split. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool, and hopefully we get to take them down next time.
I hope so. Well, I think that was our last shot for at least
playoffs.
For the regular season, right? We beat them in the first round robin. We lost them in the second, so we're 1-1, 3-1 against them on the year. I will
3-1, yeah.
But we'll see them again in playoffs. Hopefully not too soon, because I think they're a pretty scary team. But yeah, hopefully we see them kind of deep down in playoffs. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Chaotic Neutral presented by Motorola. I've been Artemis, joined by Sab. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.